Why are ships red on the bottom? Sounds like the kind of question a 5-year-old asks on a ferry ride. Cute, simple, easy to wave away. Turns out the answer involves ancient warfare, a chemical so toxic it changed the sex of sea snails, and a technology war that's been raging since humans first dragged a wooden boat into salt water. That red paint isn't decoration. It's the longest-running arms race in maritime history. And the enemy? It's alive. Here's the problem. The second you put a ship in the ocean starts eating it. Not waves, not rust, life, barnacles, algae, mussels, tube worms, thousands of species that do nothing all day except look for a hard surface to latch onto. And a ship hull? That's a 5-star resort. Within hours of launch, a thin bacterial film starts forming on the hull. Within weeks, that film becomes a carpet of slime. Within months, you've got barnacles the size of quarters cemented onto the steel like they've signed a 30-year mortgage. And once they're on, good luck. A single barnacle produces a natural superglue so strong that materials scientists have studied it for decades trying to replicate it. And this isn't just gross, it's expensive. A layer of slime 0.5 millimeter thick, thinner than a credit card, can increase a ship's fuel consumption by 20 to 25%. Add barnacles? You're looking at 40%, sometimes more. For a large container ship burning hundreds of thousands of dollars in fuel per voyage, that's not a rounding error. That's a financial emergency. The global shipping industry loses tens of billions of dollars every year to this problem. Tens of billions. To organisms you could fit on your thumbnail, so for as long as humans have been sailing, they've been asking the same desperate question. How do we stop the ocean from hitchhiking on our boats? That red paint below the waterline? It's not a color. It's a 3,000-year-old answer to that question. And the red comes from the weapon inside it, copper. Copper kills marine organisms. It's been doing that job since before anyone understood why it worked. Ancient Greeks and Romans tried covering their wooden hulls with lead sheets to keep shipworms out. It worked, sort of. The lead was heavy, it corroded the iron bolts, and it didn't do much against algae and barnacles. For centuries, sailors tried everything: tar, pitch, animal fat, even arsenic. Nothing stuck, literally. Then in 1761, the British Royal Navy tried something radical. They took a frigate called the HMS Alarm, a ship that came back from the Caribbean with a hull so worm-eaten it was basically a floating colander, and nailed copper sheets directly to the bottom. It worked. Spectacularly. The copper killed shipworms, repelled barnacles, and made the hull so smooth the ship was significantly faster than anything else in the water. The Navy saw a tactical gold mine. By 1782, they'd coppered over 300 warships, battleships, frigates, sloops. British ships were faster, spent less time in port for scraping, and could stay at sea longer. It wasn't just maintenance. It was a military advantage. The HMS Beagle, the ship that carried Charles Darwin around the world, sailed with copper sheathing below the waterline. By that point, copper bottoms were standard. The entire British Empire ran on them, but then came iron hulls. And copper touching iron in salt water creates galvanic corrosion. The metals basically destroy each other, so you couldn't just nail copper to a steel ship anymore. The solution? Copper paint. In the mid-1800s, shipbuilders figured out they could grind copper compounds, specifically cuprous oxide, into paint and coat the hull. Same toxic effect on marine life. No galvanic corrosion. And that cuprous oxide? It has a natural reddish-brown color. That's it. That's where the red comes from. Not branding, not tradition, chemistry. Copper paint worked. But by the mid-20th century, the shipping industry wanted something stronger, longer-lasting, cheaper. And they found it. A compound called tributylated. TBT was incredible at its job. One coat could protect a hull for years. It was the most effective anti-fouling substance ever invented. Shipping companies loved it, and for about 3 decades, it was everywhere. There was just one problem. TBT didn't only kill barnacles, it killed everything. It leached into the water and accumulated in marine ecosystems. Oyster shells deformed so badly that entire oyster farms in France collapsed. Fish immune systems weakened. And then scientists discovered something genuinely disturbing. TBT was causing female sea snails to grow male reproductive organs, a condition called imposex. Not a subtle hormonal shift, actual physical penis-like structures growing on female animals. Over 150 species affected. Entire populations went sterile. Some went locally extinct. Concentrations as low as 1 nanogram per liter of seawater were enough to trigger it. 1 nanogram. That's 1/1000th of a gram. A chemical designed to keep barnacles off boats was rewriting the biology of animals that had nothing to do. A chemical designed to keep barnacles off boats was rewriting the biology of animals that had nothing to do with shipping. France banned it first in 1982 for small boats. Other countries followed. And in 2008, the International Maritime Organization banned TBT globally. No more applications on any ship, anywhere. The industry went back to copper, the thing that had worked for 250 years. Today, most anti-fouling paints still use copper oxide, and they're still red. Partly because the chemistry hasn't fundamentally changed. Partly because red hides rust and dirt better than white ever could. And partly, honestly, because that's just what ships look like. Tradition runs deep in an industry that moves 90% of everything you own across oceans, and that's the part people miss. This isn't a niche problem. Over 100,000 commercial ships are operating right now. Every single one needs hull protection. Every single one is a potential fuel waster, emission producer, and invasive species taxi if the coating fails. The paint below the waterline is one of the most consequential engineering decisions in global trade, and almost nobody talks about it. But copper isn't perfect either. It still leaches into the water. It still harms marine life, just less dramatically than TBT. Regulators in Europe and elsewhere are already pushing to reduce copper in anti-fouling paints, so the cutting edge has moved on. The newest coatings don't poison organisms at all. They use silicone-based surfaces so slippery that barnacles physically can't get a grip. Think of a non-stick pan, but for the ocean. The organisms try to attach, the ship moves through the water, and the current just peels them right off. These coatings are biocide-free, they cut fuel consumption by up to 20% compared to conventional paint, and they come in any color you want. Blue, gray, black. Some cruise lines already use them, which means the era of the red hull might actually be ending. Not with a ban, not with a regulation, but because we finally found something better than poison. Next time you see a ship, at the coast, in a documentary on a cruise, look at where the paint changes color. That line is the waterline. Everything below it is the battlefield. And if it's red, you're looking at the same basic idea the Royal Navy figured out in 1761. Copper kills things that slow you down. If it's gray or black, that ship might be running one of the most advanced surface technologies on the planet. No toxins, no copper, just physics. 3,000 years of fighting the ocean, and we might finally be winning without poisoning it.